Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for coming to today's forum on persons with disabilities, rights, and social inclusion. Today's event marks the last of a series of events that we've held this month in celebration of the 25th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act. And to open our program, I would like to welcome our acting public affairs counselor, Kurt Hoyer.
Wow, that's cool. Thank you. I'll do that back. Thank you very much. It's very kind of you. No, we certainly appreciate all of our audience, our honored guests, Ambassador Goldberg, Senator Angara, our distinguished speakers as well, who'll be presenting to us. It's a great pleasure to welcome you all here to the embassy and extend our appreciation for your participation and your presence here with us. It's great. We're honored to be here among leaders of government and civil society on the issue of persons with disabilities and their inclusion in society. It's an important issue. I'm not going to steal anybody's thunder. I'm going to let the speakers speak. I'm going to let Mr. Ambassador and Senator Angara speak as well. But I just wanted to extend my thanks and our appreciation from the embassy for your being here today. And I will turn the microphone back over to Liz, who will take the program from here. So thank you again very much for coming.
Thank you, Kurt. And now it is my pleasure to introduce to you our first speaker. He is Senator Juan Edgardo, or Sonny Angara. Senator Angara earned his undergraduate degree in international relations at the London School of Economics. He went on to study law at the University of the Philippines and Harvard Law School. He has served 3 terms as representative of Aurora Province and is proud to have been a part of that province's transformation into a growing tourist, agribusiness, and investment destination. Additionally, through his Priority Development Assistance Fund, Senator Angara funded the construction of over 300 classrooms, the education of over 3,000 scholars, and the treatment of over 12,000 patients in 11 government hospitals. Sir?
Thanks a lot, Elizabeth, Ambassador Philip Goldberg, Kurt Hoyer, our Executive Director of the National Council on Disability Affairs, Ms. Carmen Zubiaga, to the EVP and CEO of Tahanang Walang Hagdanan, Joy Garcia, to the Vice President for Operations, or the President of SM Supermalls, Ms. Annie Garcia, to the Vice President for Operations of SM Cares, Mr. Bien Mateo, to our bemedaled Paralympian Powerlifter Adeline Dumapong, to the President of the Pasay City Social Welfare Development. This is Miss Leticia Calixto Isidro. Where is she? Yeah. And we also have with us former NCCA Chair Cecil Guidotti Alvarez and former Chair of the Commission ng Wikang Pilipino, Jolad Santos. To the various organizations who are here, there's so many of you. The Young Southeast Asian Leaders, the DLSU, Miriam, Philippine National School, Philippine School for the Deaf, St. Joseph, DepEd, PUP, DLSU, so many, UP Diliman, Asia Foundation, Emilio Aguinaldo College, Metropolitan Museum, Deaf and Hard of Hearing, Metropolitan Museum. Sorry, apologies to the translators for speaking so quickly. UNESCO, media, and the various media representatives here. Magandang umaga, good morning, good afternoon rather, sorry. There's a viral video which went that labels are for cans and not for people. It's a study of in a room they put 6 people and who could not see each other, but there was an infrared camera that was filming them. And what they did was make every person speak about what he does and talk about his passions and his goals in life. And they would do a test and they would show them afterwards, and people would try to guess what that job was. And you had a really big person with tattoos. You had a person with very thick eyeglasses. you had a person in a wheelchair, and they tried to guess. And most of the guesses were wrong about what they did based on their appearance. Because it turns out that the one with the thick glasses was a heavy metal musician. And the one with the tattoos, who was very big, was a teacher, an academic professor. And he actually spoke at one of these famous TEDx conferences. And the third, the man in the wheelchair, turned out to be an extreme sports athlete who liked to go skydiving for his hobby. So it's clear that that people's appearances are only the start. I mean, you have so many sayings about this: don't judge a book by its cover, etc. I think it goes for people as well. But it's counterintuitive in a way, because we like to put people in boxes. We like to. It's easier that way. This is the guy who does this. You know, he has tattoos. He's a biker. You know, it's easier. That's how our minds work. But I think we have to really, if we want to go to deeper levels of understanding, deeper levels of policy, then you have to go beyond that. And just like Stevie Wonder, the great man, said, just because a man lacks the use of his eyes does not mean he lacks vision. So I'd like to mention here a very important law, since we're celebrating the anniversary of the U.S. Disabilities Act of 1990, or ADA. I'd like to talk a little bit about that and the experience of a man named Lex Frieden, who in 1967, as an 18-year-old college student, like many of you here, at Oklahoma State University, he suffered serious injuries from a car crash. And he had to use a wheelchair because he was paralyzed from the shoulders down. And he had to eventually drop out of school due to difficulties navigating the campus. So he had to enroll in another university. So this man, Lex, eventually helped craft the ADA in 1986. And 4 years later, the ADA was passed to ban discrimination and to require public spaces like doctors' offices, like hotels, and other public spaces to be accessible to PWDs. This is a landmark law, the ADA. And I think not just in the US, but also around the world, I think people took note, and definitely we took note here in the Philippines. And we passed our own version with the Magna Carta for people with disabilities. So these stories are very inspiring for all of us. And we realize that our laws on PWDs, it's really a work in progress, and there's still much that needs to be done. Not the awareness level regarding our laws, the accessibility law, Batasang Pambansa 344, the Magna Carta for the Disabled Persons, Republic Act 7277, mababa pa po ang awareness level. The awareness level is very low, and everyone in this room, I think, has a role to play in telling our people in the provinces, in the far reaches, where the newspapers arrive late in the afternoon and there is no internet connection. We need to find a way to get this information out to these people. Just this Monday, the President delivered his State of the Nation address. I don't know how many of our major television networks showed it with sign language. You know, I know that SM now is trying to show movies that people can understand, people with disabilities, whether they're blind, they're deaf, and I know that's a continuing effort, and we appreciate that kind of effort on your part. So definitely, I think I'm here to do my share as a policy maker, and we're definitely pushing a lot of bills that would, when enacted into law, would make a big difference in the lives of our PWDs. We have the VAT exemption for PWDs, that's Senate Bill 2483. My good news is that it's been signed by majority of the members of my committee, the Senate Committee on Ways and Means. Ang pinag-uusapan po dyan ay buwis, we're talking about taxes. So the 20% VAT exemption, I think, would go a long way. I meet a lot of people who say, sir, you better pass that bill because, you know, we're paying so many thousand pesos a month for medicines for our kids and our dependents. So definitely, we're pushing that, and I'm cautiously optimistic that we'll get that done before the May 2016 elections. We also have a comprehensive anti-discrimination bill to prevent discrimination against those applying for work and other benefits. And of course, we have the Inclusive Education Act, or Senate Bill 2579, which aims to widen the access of children with special needs to basic education and to promote special education centers nationwide. For athletes, we also would like to include Paralympic athletes as those who receive incentives and benefits from our Philippine Sports Commission. So these are but some of the steps, and if there are any other suggestions, definitely we welcome these. And oftentimes our leaders pronounce that we would like to join the ranks of the US, the UK, the G20 in the so-called developed nations. But for me, the true mark of a really developed nation is one that treats its minorities with care, yung tamang kalinga, yung tamang pag-aaruga. Definitely, I think when we've done that, then we can really say that we are a developed country. So thank you very much, Ambassador Goldberg, for inviting me here today, and appreciate your invitation very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. It is now my honor to introduce to you Ambassador Philip Goldberg. He was sworn in as a U.S. Ambassador to the Philippines in November 2013. And prior to coming to Manila, he served as the Assistant Secretary of State for the Bureau of Intelligence and Research. His previous overseas assignments include service as Ambassador to Bolivia, Chief of Mission in Kosovo, and Deputy Chief of Mission in Chile. Ambassador Goldberg is a native of Boston, Massachusetts, and a graduate of Boston University. Sir?
Magandang hapon sa inyong lahat. Thank you for all for being here, especially on a Friday afternoon, the last day of the month, and it shows how important this issue is and how committed so many people are to remembering the issues of equality, the issues of disabilities and different abilities, and that everyone receive the rights that they deserve. I'd like to thank everyone who made it possible to be with us today, especially Senator Angara, for taking the time. Thank you very much, sir. Thanks are also due to our group of experts and panelists, Carmen Zubiaga, Director of the National Council on Disability Affairs, Joy Garcia, Bien Mateo from S&M, who is here with us and have done so much in this area of SM Care's program on disability affairs, and Adeline Dumapong. Is she here somewhere? Oh, there you are. Right up on stage, the bemedaled Paralympian athlete. We are also recognizing and commemorating the 25th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act this year. The U.S. government is a strong advocate for equal access for all to education, employment, and other social services. And this Americans with Disabilities Act was a tremendous accomplishment, especially coming when it did in 1990. The act prohibits discrimination against people with disabilities in employment, transportation, public accommodation, communications, and governmental activities. On July 26, 1990, more than 3,000 people gathered on the South Lawn of the White House as President George H.W. Bush signed the act. It was the largest audience to witness a bill become law in the history to that point in the United States. And it's brought about great changes. You know, in this building, this building was built before World War II. In fact, this building has a tremendous history, which I was telling Senator Angara about before. You see pictures of MacArthur and former President Taft on the walls. But this building also represents an era. And as you might notice, it wasn't an era in which people with disabilities were taken into account. And it was an afterthought at the time. And then there are two buildings on either side of this. And we're in the process of rehabilitating this building, and it will have all the bells and whistles that are part of the Americans with Disabilities Act and recognize that things and upgrades are needed. But these two buildings that we built and have opened over the last 5 years or so, have all of those different aspects included in the construction, where all of the access and facilities and everything is compliant. And that's the way it should be. We can make accommodations in an older building like this, but it still requires some work. And it should be part of the original design, which it will be when we are finished rehabilitating this part of the embassy as well. All of this required, by the way, the ADA, a good deal of struggle. When we made improvements to our government facilities that were built before 1990, these upgrades are sometimes, as I mentioned, difficult. Likewise, ensuring that disabled students are able to participate fully in the educational system may not be easy or inexpensive, but it's the right thing to do. In February and August of last year, we conducted a forum on disabilities with Miriam College to raise awareness about the importance of inclusion. And so we're bringing this message out, not just in the Philippines, but around the world, so that countries that are also interested, as this country is, in providing the right facilities and the right opportunities for people with disabilities to have that expertise or experience anyway that we've had. We brought out NBA legends to work with the Paralympians and the wheelchair basketball players, who are a lot better than Senator Angara or I are at this point. They're wonderful to watch, and we did some excellent drills with them. On July 1st and 11th, we conducted another couple of sports clinics in Baguio. And as I say, embarrassingly enough, they make me take free throws before that, and it's not a very good example. And in our 4th of July celebration this year, the focus of our Independence Day celebration was promoting inclusion. In fact, we were honored to have 2 blind singers from the Philippine National School for the Blind and the popular musical group Rondalla on Wheels perform at the celebration. It was just a way of highlighting the wonderful skills, the wonderful music that people with disabilities can bring to us. So I, again, thank you all and applaud you all for being here today and for being advocates for the disabled, for doing the right thing. And I look forward to witnessing all the good work that you're doing so that it takes root here in the Philippines as well. And I admire your dedication to it. Maraming salamat po.
Okay, before we move on in our program, I'd like to extend a warm welcome to our online viewers at viewing parties at our American Corners. They are at the University of San Carlos, the University of St. La Salle, Silliman University, and Central Philippines University. It is now my pleasure to introduce to you our panel of speakers. First, we have Bien Mateo. He is the Vice President for Operations and Program Director of Disability Affairs at SM Cares. As director, he serves as SM's representative to PWD constituents in both the government and NGO sectors, and he ensures that PWD concerns are addressed in day-to-day mall operations. To his immediate left, I'd like to welcome Carmen Zubiaga. Carmen was appointed as the Acting Executive Director of the National Council on Disability Affairs in July 2012. She is a lifelong PWD advocate, and her disability has never hindered her success. Carmen completed her Bachelor of Arts in Mass Communication from Trinity College in Quezon City and earned a master's degree in Development Management from the Asian Institute of Management in Makati. She has experience in the fields of project development and management, marketing, public relations, and grant proposal writing, and previously worked with the United Nations Development Program as Executive Director and Technical Advisor of the National Center for the Disabled in the Cambodian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Carmen is a recipient of several distinguished awards, including the PWD Achievers Award given to her by the former President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo. Next to Carmen, I'd like to welcome Jocelyn Cevallos-Garcia. And she goes by Joy, so I'll say Joy. Joy is the Executive Vice President of Chief Operations Officer of Tahanang, Walang, Hagdanan. Hopefully I didn't say that too terribly. TWH is a prominent NGO that aims to uplift the lives of the orthopedically handicapped persons. She is also president of WOW LEAP, which is Women with Disabilities Leap to Social and Economic Progress, and a board auditor for Workability Asia. In June 2015, Joy was appointed by the President of the Philippines to be the sectoral representative of the National Anti-Poverty Commission's PWD sector. In this capacity, she works with 23 council members in different regions to create a more inclusive society. One of her plans this year is to organize Workability Philippines, and this initiative will improve the job placement of PWDs through collaboration with the business sector. And last but not least, I'd like to extend a warm welcome to Adeline Dumapong. ADS is the first and only Filipino Paralympic medalist. She has represented the Philippines in international powerlifting competitions for 17 years, and she has 17 medals to prove it, including 10 gold medals. She is a four-time Paralympian and is currently preparing for the qualifying rounds of her 5th Paralympics to be held in Rio de Janeiro in 2016. A mother to a 13-year-old daughter, Ads was diagnosed with polio on both lower legs at the age of 3. She is a strong advocate for children and women with disabilities and a freelance consultant on disability issues and concerns. In addition to this forum, the U.S. Embassy is especially thankful for her support with other recent activities, including guesting on a number of radio programs to promote our initiatives. Thank you. Okay. At this time, I would like to start the presentation from our panelists, and we'll start with Ms. Carmen.
Thank you, Liz. Ambassador Philip Goldberg, Senator Angara, and of course, Miss Annie of SM. And I would also like to acknowledge all our friends here, my dear friends from College of St. Emil, from Miriam College, and all my colleagues in the advocacy sector, Ms. Danko, and the rest of ASP. I think I would like to give my sincere thanks to the U.S. Embassy for having this activity. And we've just we're just very overwhelmed on the 25th celebration of ADA, or the American with Disabilities Act. Like, for the fact that American with Disabilities Act has been an inspiration for the Philippines to have a rights-based law for the first time. So, as President George Bush signed it in July 26, 1990. 2 years later, the Magna Carta of Disabled Persons, or the Republic Act 7277, was also signed by President Corazon Aquino. What is Republic Act 7277? The Magna Carta of Disabled Person is an act providing for rehabilitation, self-development, and self-reliance of persons of disabled persons and their integration into mainstream society. That was indeed for the first time that Filipinos with disabilities have ever heard of their rights. And that is the legacy of the late Arturo Borjal, also known as the Jaywalker, the famous columnist who was appointed as Executive Director of the National Council on Disability Affairs, who was the successor of the very first Executive Director, the late Estelita Huco, who was the first Executive Director with disability the Council ever had. And he was followed by Arturo Borjal, who then became the second, followed who followed also Estelita Huco, who died of cancer, and he left this legacy for persons with disability. RA 7277 was an attempt to mainstream disability within the government policies, programs, and services, recognizing the rights of persons with disabilities and granting them privileges. I remember that I was also a part of the team who developed the implementing rules and regulation of the IRR in 1992. And we had a very we often came up with a very heated argument with the government representatives who have not recognized that persons with disabilities should be a part of their programs as they are mandated. And the rights of persons with disabilities, which we have heard for the first time, was equal employment opportunity. It was the very first law that ever state that persons with disabilities should not be discriminated on the basis of their disabilities, and they have the right to work if they are qualified. Quality education for learners with special needs. And that was the very first time that DepEd was instructed to set up special education classes in all public schools. And up to now, out of the 48,000 elementary schools, we only have 400 SPED centers. And the professionals, we still acknowledge that we lack professionals to man this SPED school. But education has evolved. It's no longer SPED. We don't want special education. We want inclusive education. We want to be included. We don't want to be segregated. We want to break the school for the blind, the school for the deaf, the school for crippled children. We want to be included in mainstream education, special education, inclusive education in a real sense of inclusion, not segregation. Health and rehabilitation. That was the first time that we heard that all government hospitals should have rehabilitation centers. But up to now, where are those rehabilitation centers? Auxiliary social services, the service that should be given by the Social Welfare Department, which should assist persons with disabilities to live independently in the community. But glad that persons with disabilities are living on their own and make their own ways to live the hard way in the community, to combat discrimination, to combat the inaccessible environment, to combat unemployment, and to combat discrimination when they apply to work. Transportation has always been a problem. And yet, we are very happy. Why? Because After 23 years, the Magna Carta, in spite of the dislikes of some persons with disability, Magna Carta has evolved into several complete laws. RA 9442 is an amendment of Magna Carta which grants privileges and still it's undergoing amendment, which we hope Senator Angara would successfully pass. That exemption of the discount for persons with disabilities. Yes, that exempt. And we also hope that they would acknowledge that that tax deduction, tax discount for working persons with disabilities and recognize the cost of living with disability. Mahalang wheelchair, mahalang hearing aid, very expensive ang rehabilitation and the maintenance medication. We just don't need a discount. We need additional cost, additional income to maintain living with dignity. And the state can only provide us that. So what are the impact of Magna Carta? Yeah. It became the basis for PWDs to claim their rights in their own community. Now they are organizing from the barangay up to the municipal level, and the voice of persons with disabilities are now being heard. It's a platform for advocacy which united a diverse group into one voice. Before, blind, deaf, those who are those with physical disabilities, they are all disaggregated. But now they are having their one voice because they have common platform. We have to promote our human right, our right like to claim our rights like any other citizen and live on an equal basis with others. And of course, the ratification of the UNCRPD, persons with disabilities and advocate became more critical in harmonizing the Magna Carta according to the Disability Rights Standard. We now have, additional to 9442, we have RA 10070, which mandates all local government units to create a Persons with Disabilities Affairs Office to recognize persons with disabilities as part of as active participants in local governance. They have to implement their own programs and services and see to it that all government agencies are implementing the programs according to their mandates. And of course, we have the RA 10524, which allocates at least 1% of positions of government and public and private companies for persons with disabilities. So we hope that many LGUs, government agencies, will now think of complying with this law. And that is also to combat unemployment of persons with disabilities. We also have the RA 10366, which is very important. Why? Because we want to be heard. We want to be a part of the general decision-making body. Authorizing COMELEC to allocate accessible polling places for persons with disabilities and senior citizens. Because we really want to vote, but the physical barriers and the attitudes and lack of awareness of those who are in the election bodies are barriers that we have to beat. Now with this, we can vote to any SM mall. We can vote to any accessible places that we want our COMELEC. You set it up there, or else we will file a case against you. Diba? So we still have other, and I think this will be the last. I just want to give emphasis the human right of person with disability. It is the duty of the state to respect, protect, and fulfill the rights of persons with disabilities. So we have the right to life. everyone will say to us that you have the right to life. But what kind of life? We don't want just a life, but a life with dignity. And tapos na yung 5 minutes ko, miss. Okay na? I still have a lot to discuss with you, but the 5 minutes, you can just ask question later. And I just want to leave you something. It's not only the duty of the government to protect, respect, and fulfill our rights, but it's the duty of all citizens to protect, to respect, protect, and fulfill the rights of persons with disabilities. And with this, I just want to remind you that we have another decade to make the right real. Proclamation 688 declare 2013 to 2022 as the decade of Make the Rights Real in support of the Asian and the Pacific decade of Make the Right Real for persons with disabilities. And we are adopting the disability inclusive development strategies to implement programs according to the strategy of the decade. And it instructs all government agencies to implement programs and services according to their mandates with reference to the disability inclusive development strategy. And of course, with funds. That is the most important because we cannot afford to have a program without funds. And this is our right to have we have to have a share in the community resources. Because what are we fighting for? We are fighting for our right. And it's our right to have a share in the country's resources. And we hope that in the next budget hearing, you have to look, Senator Angara, you have to look at the budget. How many percentage are allocated on disability? And I just want to inform you ahead of time that most of the programs and the additional requests from the NCDA was slashed by the DBM from us. And that is an injustice to the sector who is not getting their rightful share to the country's resources. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Carmen, for your great presentation on the laws for PWDs. I'd now like to call on Joy for her presentation.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. His Excellency Philip Goldberg and Honorable Senator Angara. Thank you for inviting us here. And we know that we are important. However, I have adopted the theme which we had in Pattaya, Thailand, which I was also the speaker, with regards to making difference. So together we can make difference. And yeah, please. The Philippines is one of the signatories of UNCRPD. All of us knows that. But there is a responsibility where the state promises to amend or should promulgate laws for the improvement of the lives of persons with disability. I just want to kick off my talk with this UNCRPD. Next, please. When we are talking about persons with disability, there are different actors or initiators for change. And the initiators for change should work together. We should complement each other. Who are those actors? The government and the private organizations. It should be that the programs giving towards inclusive development for persons with disabilities should be more comprehensive and effective. We have also the other actor, which is very important. The NGOs, cooperatives, CSOs, VPOs as major initiator for change. They should not be left behind. They should be accorded with support and a structured mechanism for partnership. I am telling this because I am part of Tahanang Walang Hagdanan, which is an NGO and had initiated so many good things for persons with disabilities. And I hope the government should also see to it that this NGO should have uh, a part in their programs. And then, of course, the very important actor, which is not the supporting actor, but the, what do you call that one? Main star is the persons with disabilities. If no persons with disabilities will claim their rights, then nobody would be able to see the importance of a person with disability living in this country. Next, please. And the undertakings that we should have partnership with is the participation of the marginalized sector is not complete without the support mechanism that has to be designed in a consultative approach. Hindi po pwedeng you just do something for us. You need to consult us. Conflicting laws. Government should move towards effective and efficient poverty alleviation program by enhancing the participatory power of the organizations, one of the major initiators, as partners in doing the work of the government, which is in one way or the other, they should abide by the rules and regulation of a regular business corporations, which is not supposed to be. Next, please. I would like to go back 1973, wherein we had some changes. 1973 is still what you call very the people are not yet aware of rights. One of the founder of Tahanang Walang Hagdanan, which is Sister Valeriana Bartz, a Belgian sister, started all of these things. And Tahanang Walang Hagdanan was then an empty lot. Next, please. So, in 1973, it was founded by Sister. Before, it was only meant for vocational and rehabilitation center. But because of the difficulties of inclusive or mainstreaming persons with disabilities, we initiate the entrepreneurship, the sheltered workshop, and now inclusive of different livelihood programs. Next, please. So I would like to show you the career path of people with disabilities, which we are doing in Tahanang Walang Hagdanan, and also been patterned in other countries. We are in the social services and medical rehabilitation. After that, the sheltered employment or vocational training, supported employment, and mainstream inclusive employment. That is supposed to be the trend. Or some other persons with disability would go directly to the last one. And it so happened that with this kind of path, career path, we would uplift the lives of persons with disability and not to see them on the streets begging. There's so many mendicants on the streets. Next, please. I would like to show you what we are doing. We have mobility aid assistance. You can go already because I know I have 5 minutes. Mobility aid assistance. Next. And then we have eye screening and cleft palate operation in partnership with different organizations. And this is being done in community-based program in 14 municipalities of Rizal. Then next, please. And then we have inclusive scholarship program in partnership with Assisi Foundation that is together with children without disability and children with disability. And of course, inside the center, we have a learning center for persons with intellectual disability. Next. These are our graduates for the past, since the start of the scholarship program in the community base. These are some of the few. Next, please. And then we have the physical therapies and occupational therapy services, wherein it is being given as service to the community. And then sports and recreation development program, of course, the empowerment of women, wherein we empower them through training, skills training, and even ballroom dancing. I know how to dance. Yeah. Next, please. And then we have, in having this, as it evolves, we have the community-based rehabilitation, where we would want that the PDAO, or Persons with Disability Affairs Office, should be institutionalized. So we partnered with LGUs, we dialogue with local chief executives, and organize disabled people's group in the barangay level to the municipal level. And then we have income generating projects. As you see, we are manufacturing wheelchairs, and we are manufacturing school chairs. And this is because of the Executive Order 417, Economic Empowerment, where 10% of the procurement of the government should be given to persons with disability group or organization. Some are implementing, some are not. Most do not. Next, please. We have partnership with different laboratories. This is our packaging and sewing section. We have a partnership with United Laboratories, a pharmaceutical company, where we manufacture medicines. There are about 80 to 120 people working here, and it is very important to look at this service or this partnership with the business sector so that we can replicate this in other community. Next, please. And then the wheelchair manufacturing. Yeah, you can go on. Yes, the woodworks, the TWH woodworks, and we make educational toys for Department of Education, and we also help cooperatives. We help other regions to replicate best practices by giving them skills training. And then silk screen. We do media promotions in lobbying and the House of Senate and Congress, as I have done in with Senator Angara, and the advocacy program, wherein Access 2020 Race to Success, where we want that the people would know that we are here waiting for your programs and services. And of course, we have a National Anti-Poverty Commission. I should not fail to mention that. And then our engagement with the international organization, which is Workability Asia and Workability International, which is the mission is to the work and employment of persons with disability worldwide. Persons with disability has the right to work worldwide. Now, I would like to highlight, before I end, this is my last slide, leaders and achievers touched by Sister Valeriana, and in one way or the other has been a part of Tahanang Walang Hagdanan. So as you can see, there's the Maricela Patan is now a chef in pastries and as a Shangri-La. And then we have, of course, the very beautiful Miss, the NCDA director, and Enrique Ampo of Cagayan de Oro, Rex Bernardo of Bicol region, and Maricel from the lower bottom is now in Japan for job placement. And she is working there as a fundraiser. So we have also the mouth painter, Amado Dolnoan, who is known, I think you have seen him in many televisions. He is a very good mouth painter artist. So I think that's all for now, and thank you very much. And I hope you will replicate this, even not in our place because it's already there, but in other places, because this will help make a difference in our country. Thank you.
Thank you, Joy. It's really quite impressive to hear about all of the good work that TWH does. And now I'd like to call on Bien.
So I'll speak from here so you won't get tired looking from left to right. Ambassador Philip Goldberg, Senator Sani Angara, our friends in the PWD sector, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Thank you for giving me the chance to present to you a simple blueprint on how SM Supermalls promote an inclusive environment for persons with disabilities. A relevant topic aligned in your program today entitled PWD Rights, Diversity, and Social Inclusion. We have the privilege of serving millions of people daily, and we know that this comes with great responsibilities. Our experience has shown that physically challenged customers do come and visit our malls. We realize that we have the responsibility to take care of them, of every customer who walks in our malls. One of our first realizations was the need to create a committee that would handle cases on disability affairs within our business environment across the country. And it's headed by our president, Ms. Annie Garcia. This was enough for us to have begun seeking guidance from experts. We consulted heads of various organizations. Among them are the Autism Society Philippines, represented by Ms. Danco, right in front. The Down Syndrome Association of the Philippines, represented by Ms. Agnes Lapena. The National Council on Disability Affairs, headed by a co-panelist, Ms. Carmen Zubiaga. And the United Architects of the Philippines, represented by our blind architect friend, Architect Jimmy Silva. This opened us to new directions and approaches. We began to enlarge our duties and started to integrate the role of being public servants into our jobs as well. We began and spearheaded regular training sessions for executives, managers, tenant employees, and service personnel on how to assist persons with disabilities. We invite resource speakers from the PWD sector to train us how we can serve our customers with special needs. We also conduct quarterly general formation for all our frontliners, such as security guards, janitors, and cashiers. These early morning sessions tackled many operational issues. However, we began to include the concerns on inclusive environment during these gatherings. Because of improvements in accessibility, SM malls become regular venues for PWD organizations celebrating their advocacies. The Angels Walk for Autism is an early morning parade held in Mall of Asia annually. Crowd of over 15,000 people filled up the Mall of Asia arena. They come and celebrate the barrier-free and inclusive environment with their families and friends. The Happy Walk for Down syndrome is also an annual celebration. It is held in SM City North EDSA to promote its awareness to the public. Who would have thought of a blind watching and enjoying the movies? SM pioneered the special screening of audio descriptive movies. Exclusively for persons with visual impairment. These are movies that have audio narrations of key visual elements to the movie. It describes the actions, facial expressions, scene changes, gestures, and even identify the speaker in the movie. After every screening, the joy and happiness in the faces of blind children and their families are priceless. SM also cares for their safety at home. Just a couple of weeks ago, SM conducted an earthquake resilience conference exclusively for persons with disabilities and senior citizens. Experts from the field of seismology, rescue, and evacuation shared their lectures on how to be prepared during earthquakes. Just last week, at the culmination of the celebration of the National Disability Prevention Week, a benefit concert for PWDs was held in SM Aura Samsung Hall. Aside from raising funds for various PWD projects, it brought joy and happiness to our friends in the PWD sector. The changes that we have put in place have resulted in recognition by no less than the President of the Philippines, who has conferred on our malls the highest award in this endeavor, known as the Apolinario Mabini Award. It was announced last week by the Apolinario Mabini Committee that this year, more awards will be received by various SM malls for being PWD friendly. Our efforts in promoting inclusive environment have rippled outside the boundary of the Philippines. In 2011, SM was invited to share the PWD programs in a convention in the United Nations in New York. Several more international presentations were done in Thailand and Japan, as most of the delegates got very much interested that in the Philippines, there is a private company that is strongly advocating for PWD inclusion. We are grateful that all of our activities for PWDs have been greatly received and that such efforts somewhat contribute to their integration into our community. What essentially has happened to us since we began getting involved with accessibility was a change in our attitude. What we at SM Supermalls remain committed to is to have adopted a new perspective, a new principle, and a new vision where persons with disabilities are important and productive members of society. Today, we have presented to you a simple blueprint on how we empower the decision to accessibility. As Mr. Henry C. Sr., our founder, said, be a man for others, embrace that belief, and just do our share. Thank you very much and good afternoon. But let me leave you with a very, very short commercial of SM Cares. Okay, the video won't play, but we'll play it later. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll try to play the video later. And now, last but not least, I'd like to call Ad to say a few words.
Good afternoon, everyone. Now I'm nervous. You see, I'm an athlete. I'm not a public speaker. Nevertheless, I would like to, Ambassador Goldberg, Senator Angara, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, magandang hapon po. I would like to start by asking, who among you play a sport? Can you please raise your hand? Okay. Okay, as we can see, if you pakitaas po ng kamay ulit, kahit anong sport, any sport. Okay. So, with the show of hands, we can see that less than 50% of the population in this room do not play any sport. Okay, so as you have heard, you probably know now that the sector for persons with disabilities is very diverse. We have the blind, we have the orthopedically handicapped, the deaf, the mentally challenged, and there are more. You know, I think included now are also those with diabetes and the victims of strokes. It is, I am sure that our leaders would have a it must be very challenging to unite that. Is it impossible? No, it's not. It is hard, but it's not impossible. And in all those, in all the issues and concerns for persons with disabilities, sometimes or often sport takes a backseat. Why? Because there's the issue on education, employment, accessibility. And many would say that sport is not important. But I would like to tell you that I am a living example that sport can do much of a change in a person with disabilities life. I am very happy
and very blessed because I grew up with a Belgian missionary who has, they have a culture of sports in Europe. And I was living in that institution where we were encouraged to join in as many sports as possible. But in the Philippines, where sport is sometimes called as for only the elite people, there are many of us, massa, or the greater part of the population do not think it is important. But you see, for a person with a disability, sport has an impact both on the person with the disability and the community. For the person with disability, sport is a tool that can enhance the self-confidence, that can propel that person to go to school to achieve other things. And the impact of sport, of a person with disability playing sport, the impact of it in the community is that the community focuses more on the ability of the person with disability rather than on the disability itself. You see, when you put people in the community with the able-bodied and the people with disabilities, they can play together. There can be unity by playing sport or music. But since, of course, I'm advocating for sport, I would say that it is really something that is not being used as it's because I know that it is a powerful tool for change. And so, distinguished guests, I would like just to implore you that if you know of anybody who has a disability, try to encourage that person to get into sport. It is very, very important. And in the interest of time, and also because I am getting nervous more and more, I will have to say that I would, in Facebook and in the social media, I see Americans thanking their government for the ADA. And as Ma'am Carmen mentioned earlier, in 1992, we also had the Magna Carta. And I hope that in a few years, when we also celebrate that anniversary, there will be many Filipinos with disabilities thanking their government for the change that it has created in their lives. Thank you very much. Good afternoon.
Thank you very much, Ads. I don't think you had any need to be nervous because you're so incredibly inspirational to all of us. So we've heard a lot of great things today. We've heard from Ads. We've heard from a corporation, SM. We've heard from an NGO, TWH. And of course, we've heard about the laws enacted to help PWDs here in the Philippines, the Magna Carta. And so now I'd like to open the floor to any questions that folks may have. We'll go to him and then over here.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is RP Lazaro, DWIZ. Mag-internet tayo. Ma'am Carmen, it's so good to see you again. I'm also the founder of PWDfield.com. I'd like to ask, we know that we already have all the laws in place. There've been amendments and continually being changed. No, my question is, one, how do we actually allow or how do we give implementing agencies the teeth to implement these laws? But the problem is, and I'm so sorry to have to say this in the presence of Senator Angara, that even government offices are not PWD friendly. I think a lot of people here will agree. Simple things as getting a form or going to your city hall is almost a Herculean task for a person on a wheelchair. So with all these laws, how can the government and all the agencies here can help in implementing and enforcing these laws and make sure that the people who or organizations that build buildings or have structures that will accommodate PWD people, how can we make them follow the law to make it accessible?
Okay. I think we have to put a teeth somehow in the General Appropriation Act, Section 34, which instruct all government agencies to allocate budget for installing facilities, which to make all their facilities and physical environment accessible for persons with disabilities. I think for the past 32 years na kasi yung accessibility law. We have the first Disability Rights Law in 1983, no? And for 32 years, this law has been not only violated but trampled because it's not being properly implemented because with the LGU code, which we hope to amend soon, everything now rests on the local government unit. And as you know, the local government unit has been changing all the time, every 3 years. Iba-iba naman yung tao. Those who are mandated or assigned to implement the law are architects and engineers whom we know, are they reading the building code or not? But we can do something about that. We have to strengthen our person with disability organizations at the LGU level. And we can cite you examples that in most LGUs where persons with disability groups are strong, local government unit has no choice but to follow the law. And we can tell you so many LGUs which are now examples. Dito lang naman sa Manila, matitigas sa mga mukha ng mga tao eh, di ba? Diba? So, I think, and it's not only about accessibility law, it's also about providing social pension to their constituent with disabilities. There are cities way down the south in Mindanao providing disability pension. Could you imagine that? Dito sa Manila, who among the cities are providing disability pension? Wala. But there in Mindanao, in the Visayas, their persons with disabilities are enjoying benefits given by their local government units. Why? Because persons with disabilities there are strong. They make every lecture, they make every seminars they attended very useful by echoing it with their fellow PWDs. I think, sabi nga, if there is no demand, there is no supply. How could they supply you with your needs if you're not demanding? And it's now the role of the persons with disability at the local level to really demand and claim their rights in the community. But, we have to be funded in empowering these persons with disabilities to become claimants of their rights. So, if you learn, and all of you are a part of your local government, I encourage you, I instruct you, strengthen your group and demand from your local government unit to implement the laws on disability.
Thank you. We have another question.
Yeah, I'm Cecile Guidote Alvarez from the Earth Savers. It's a socially integrated performing group which involves persons with disabilities, but we call them handicapables because I think it's very important that you showcase their confidence and their ability if given the equal opportunity to education. And so I second the motion about what everybody in the panel has said. And it's wonderful, of course, that we have the ambassador of the United States to be frontlining the rights of persons with disabilities. And we have a senator who's been really in the field of education, and now because he is in finance, probably would be able to work this out. What Carmen said, especially about employment, is very important. This 1% is a joke. You go to every government office, and it's not true. I have been pleading in the own institution that I had served to allow space for a handicapable artist to serve. And it's gotten a deadma, meaning to say they give first the priority to the able-bodied, and yet I kept on telling them he writes better than some of the staff we have. So you cannot judge a person with disability as incapable. You've got to give them that right. And now we want to walk the talk, because it is true that it must be inclusive, transformative, equitable, lifelong learning. And this was stressed by the United Nations at the Incheon Declaration. And the problem is, you can't even get scholarships. We have a techno-arts camp under the patronage of UNESCO, where it is supposed to synergize persons with disabilities with other vulnerable groups. They've got to be joined by out-of-school youth who are equally vulnerable, indigenous, and then joined by able-bodied techie students, because the need for connectivity is really ICT plus arts empowerment, and fusing the content, not just the skills, but the values and the data. So here we have the various sectors, and we would like to open the invitation through NCDA for 30 persons to join this camp, because it is being headlined by UNESCO as an inclusive ICT arts education that can really show what they are able to do. So I hope that employment through Senator Angara, I don't know what can be done to punish or, tell agencies particularly to make sure that they accept there's no such thing. Go to every agency and you'll hardly see anybody.
Thank you, Tita Cecil. Good afternoon again. I think that's a great idea to point out. But I think we should punish the people who don't comply with the laws. But I think we should also give incentives. We should also give incentives to people to hire people with disabilities, and maybe the disability groups, the DPOs, people's organizations could get together and group the people with the right skills, like who are writers, who are computer programmers, who are translators, who are communicators, and then the agencies could have a pool to choose from. I think that would be a good first step towards having them hired, and because maybe we'll get the Department of Labor and Employment involved to I think at least to provide the government to comply with that 1%.
Okay, we have a hand up here, and then we'll go over there.
Hello, good afternoon, Ambassador, Senator. Dang and I represent the Autism Society of the Philippines and the Down Syndrome Association. We belong to the mentally challenged group. So this is not a question, it's an appeal that you also think of our children. Thank you.
I believe we had a question over here.
I do have a question for Serbian of SM Cares. And this has to do about the movies, because like deaf people can't hear, but the movies don't have closed captions. And so we were wondering like if they could have those, so that And we'd like to have that all over the Philippines. Um, yes. We do have it in we have free movies in SM Bacoor, but then how about in other areas where you do have SM cinemas too?
Thank you very much. We are actually doing the movies for the blind and deaf in all our malls nationwide. We are actually doing the movies for the blind and the deaf in all our malls nationwide. But we just like to share with the group here that our cinemas are venues of the films that we show. That's why we partnered with the regulatory board of the movies. If they can encourage the filmmakers to make films that are inclusive by putting up those captions and also making the movies friendly for the visually impaired also. But we will continue to do this year-round in all our malls and in all our cinemas. In fact, we have ordered new films. So those films that you have shown, that you have seen from SM Bacoor, we will have new films very, very soon. And we will again show it in all the malls in the entire Philippines.
I'd like to, before I see a couple hands up, but first I'd like to ask a question that we received from Facebook and our American Corner. It was basically the same question from Samaj War and Army Joy. The question is, given the current lack of sustainable public transportation for PWDs, how can we best address this problem to help PWDs get out of their homes and into the schools and the workforce?
As of now, persons with disabilities are living in a day-to-day struggle of going places, and our public transport, which is not really accessible for them, are there are some, because we have organized the Department of Transportation Accessibility Task Force, which at the moment are providing some palliative solutions for persons with disabilities to avail of public transport, such as training, providing sensitivity to the drivers and the bus operators, and putting some signages, priorities for persons with disabilities. But of course, these are not really solution for persons with disabilities. And usually, the only means for transport is the taxi. And if they can afford, they have their own car, if they can afford. And most of them, we have this modified tri-bike for people who are working, but these are not really that safe. But somehow they managed to go around, and it has been a really painful scene every day to see persons with disabilities struggling to avail of public transport. Like, most of them are really refused. Taxi drivers often refuse them. And most of them, the MRTs nowadays we don't want to mention, but it's like a torture. Every day we are tortured when we want to use public transport. So that is already one violation of the UNCRPD. We should be free from torture, but every day we are tortured because the built environment is not really accessible for us. But we hope that now they claim that we are now included in the plan, and we hope that it will be implemented soon. And we hope that the plan won't become a plane. So we are all advocating the parents, the families, persons with disabilities are really getting out of their way. So sabi nga ng mga, as the parent says, please think of our children. We know that if a mother has a child with disability, with intellectual disability, she don't want to die. And even if she dies, she will surely rise from her grave to see if somebody is taking care of her child. But somehow, I can tell you that years from now, and you're not too old by then, this society will be more caring, will be more protecting, and will be taking care of your children. And that is given your full participation in creating this society. And that's why I often tell myself, I love you parents. I love you to work with me as advocates because together we will build a caring and nurturing society for your children. And we're close to that.
I would like to add on our struggles, our challenges. You know, this transportation is really one of the major barrier in the environment for an inclusive development. If we will not be able to address these problems, then we cannot say that there is an inclusive development. What we are doing right now is a temporary solution. Like we have this personal assistant who will push us, or maybe they would say they would apply to Makati or Ortigas because we are also on job placement program. We have job placed 6 staff in Tahanang in a very in ANZ and Teletech. But the problem is really the transportation. So I would like to say that please be one of us to address or to advocate for this problem. And especially the women, even though they would want to use this motorbike, they could not. They are the ones being hired, but they could not. So that's really a discrimination to women with disability. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Jaime Silva from the United Architects of the Philippines. I'd like to address this to Senator. Senator, if you look at the Batas Basakri 4, we have the previous law, the current law is so focused on the ambulatory, those with ambulatory difficulties. But we'd like to have more for those with sensory disabilities, those for the blind and those for those hearing impaired. We need more of those tactile floors, audible pedestrian signals, audible signals, and and tactile maps, and so forth and so on. But I also like to bring in another concern that we have started this January. It's called online captioning. This is the project. I think Asia Pacific has decided that to use one particular program on online captioning for the ASEAN nations. They've also decided to use one language, and this is English. And this is the reason why we put together a group and train them to do and start online captioning. When I say online captioning, it's like when I'm in Davao giving a lecture, I am linked to an internet down to the center in Makati, and the captioners there will now encode what I'm saying, and at real time will bring back what I am just saying in text. So those the deaf can read what I'm saying. So we'd like you to help us here. This is a project that's being supported for 1 year, and we've started this cooperative for this particular group. But the support from another international organization will end by the end of the year. So if we can, if this particular group, this cooperative, can now continue and do this project nationwide. This is the captioners are all persons with disabilities. The group within that cooperative are all persons with disabilities. So with this, probably it will it will give more accessibility for those with who are deaf and hard of hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, architect. That's a good point. No, I think it's sometimes we fail to distinguish between types of disabilities. So certainly, I think we need to talk to the MMDA regarding what you mentioned about traffic. I've been to countries where they have traffic when you crossings that have certain sounds, whether it's a red or a green, and there's a corresponding sound. So I just realized it now when you mentioned it, actually, that we don't seem to have those tactile floors. I don't think I've been to a single government office with a tactile floor. But definitely, I think along the way, this is the sort of even I think as a policymaker, I'm not very aware about these kinds of things. So it's definitely if you'd like, I'll ask my staff to sit down with you regarding what types of steps we can take to have more sophisticated interventions by our government agencies. So, thank you, architect. Yeah.
We had a hand up back here.
Good afternoon. My name is Lorraine from St. Joseph. My question is for Ms. Dumapong. How did you find sport? I'm sure growing up, people were always doubting your abilities. What made you realize that sport was your calling?
Okay, I started sport when at a very young age of 6, and I've competed in my school, and but for powerlifting I have started 18 years ago, and it was really a sport dominated by men. So it's not just for for able-bodied, and then of course by men. And I started. I just missed. I just like really competing. I guess that's that's my outlet. And you see, for being a disabled all my life, or person with disability all my life, I grew up with my disability. You see, I guess I'm so used to people. I'm so used to people doubting my abilities. But then again, I like proving them wrong, and I know that by giving up, then I'm proving them right. So I just push it and push it and push it, and then somehow it just happens. And so I don't envy the position of my co-panelist and of senator. I just, for me, I do lead in smaller scale, and I just do my best in sport, and I just live my life, and if along the way I get to inspire people, then that's the bonus. But for me, living with the disability, for me, living it the best that I could, living my life the best as I could, is also a feat in itself. And so, yeah, sport has really done so much for me. And I did not really realize it until that I have a niche in this in the society, until people like US Embassy started inviting me to talk about sport. But yeah, it's slowly dawning in on me that, oh, okay, I have already made a mark. But I did not really intentionally thought of making a mark, or what I wanted really was just to live my life the best way I could. Yeah, my personal record is 138 kilos, but for competition, I could lift 132 kilos.
Thank you, Ads. We have 2 questions in the back.
Hi, I'm Kin Cruz from the National Anti-Poverty Commission, Youth and Student Sector. My question is regarding to the RA 10121, the disaster Risk Reduction Management Council. 4 times na mas makaka-experience ng probability na mamatay ang taong may kapansanan in terms of calamity. And as of now, we are conducting a World Humanitarian Summit consultation in different part of the region. And ang findings namin ay yung mga taong may kapansanan ay gusto nilang mag-participate doon sa council, barangay level, municipal level, provincial level, and even to the national level. But parang wala yatang mga mechanisms on how they can participate in the council. Why? They want to participate in the council because they want to be included and ma-respect yung views nila. Aside from that, if you are part of the council, may say ka doon sa pagbabudget ng plano. My question is, how can you, what is the initiatives of the NCDA? What is the initiatives of the Senate of our country on this aspect, on mainstreaming the person with disability on the Disaster Risk Reduction Council? As of now, we are in the sunset review of the, sunset review of the laws. So how can we include the person with disability in this aspect?
Okay, since the beginning, no, since after the passage of the NDRRMC law, I was not yet in government, but I called their attention because there was no mention of disability within the law. And we conducted several forums on that. And now that I am a part of the government, we have made the advocacy to be included in the entire and the NDRRMC, and we are, since the membership is set by the law, then we became a part of the social protection cluster. But in the sunset review, we are participating, and we are amending the disability be a part of the entire NDRRMC council. And what else are we doing? We are now drafting the disability part to be included in the big manual. You know, the big is a basic instructor's guide. Will be used by all the barangays in training for the NDRRMC, and we have already come up with a draft of the manual to be included in that big manual. And another thing is there is a circular, a DILG circular, instructing all government, instructing all LGUs to include the vulnerable sector in the barangay Disaster Risk and Reduction Management Council. And we have already instructed our PWD leaders from the municipal down to barangay level to really participate in this at the barangay level Disaster Risk and Reduction Council. And we are also enhancing our registry of persons with disabilities to give it to the barangay level so that they can include it to the vulnerability map. Maps, we really have to map the vulnerable group. Like, where are the senior citizens? Where are the children with disabilities? Where are the other people who are at risk in times of disaster? Yes, we do agree that in the past Yolanda outrage and after in the post-disaster operations, persons with disabilities were really forgotten. And that's the reason why we call on a summit of all international agencies who are doing works in Tacloban, and we came up with accessibility guidelines for the post-Yolanda recovery. But because, you know the situation in Tacloban is not as harmonized as it is, right? The national government, the local government. So we went there just 2 weeks ago to find out that the accessibility was not really observed because they are doing their own thing. So each agency are doing are on their own. So there is no synchronization on what is supposed to be done and what is supposed to be included and what is supposed to be not included. But somehow it's not yet too late because we talked to the local government and provided them with inputs, and they will implement, they will include accessibility in. And it's not just a matter of inclusion, but it's a law that they should do it. And we also meet with the persons with disabilities there, and we will do some empowerment so that they can participate at the in the recovery, the post disaster recovery period. So we really have a lot to be done, not only in disaster, but of course we did with MMDA, we did some trainings even before Yolanda. We did training for on how to rescue persons with disability during disaster, how to handle them. And we trained in the other part of Leyte. We trained people in Hilongos, only to find out that that Yolanda visited Tacloban. So na-shock lang yung mga tinrain namin. Sabi nila, bakit sana dito siya tumama? Kasi handa na kami eh. Because we are ready. But we do a lot of advocacy when it comes to disability inclusive disaster risk reduction management. Why? Because this is one of the goals of the decade. We have to ensure that DRR is as disability inclusive as possible. And that is also empowering people to participate in disaster preparedness programs.
Hi, I'm Jason Reyes from. Oh,
Sorry, can I just have a short response to the question? Because the Senate was mentioned. No? I think if you're talking about disaster risk reduction, the slogan is build up better. No? So obviously that has to encompass being more accessible and the other issues mentioned earlier already, whether it's for ambulatory or for other sensory disabilities. Secondly is the Senate recently amended the disaster law to include youth in the councils, in the disaster councils. So I think maybe the Senate can consult with the NCDA to see if that's feasible to include have a disabled representative in the councils, which, as we know, encompass all levels of government from the barangay up to the municipal and city and provincial levels. No, so we can take a look at that, and if it's feasible, then we can. I think it's easy to propose amendments to these laws.
Hi, Jason Reyes from St. Joseph College, Quezon City. I have a question for Mr. Mateo and a question for Ms. Cevallos-Garcia and a final question for the speakers. Mr. Mateo, okay, any chance of including the individuals with mild cerebral palsy for possible employment in addition to the Autism Society members and stuff?
Currently, we are closely coordinating with the Autism Society for a very near future possible employment of children with autism. No? But also for children with cerebral palsy, we are also coordinating in the provinces where we have malls. We are closely coordinating with the local government because we have like positions in the mall wherein the local government sends persons with disabilities to man the ticket booths of the cinemas, for example, or the amusement centers, because they check the taxes that we pay, the amusement tax that we pay the local government. And it is not too strenuous. You just need to check the number of the tickets every now and then, as long as you can look at the number and take note of it. I think for persons with cerebral palsy, it's possible. So we can also request the local government to also include that in the people that they can send us to work in our malls.
Thank you. My question for Ms. Cevallos-Garcia. In your presentation, I saw something about production of assistive technologies. Can you expand on that? Is that like mechanical, electronic, or digital?
Yeah, just call me Joy.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, we manufacture different kinds of wheelchair, customized assistive devices. We also manufacture mechanical and at the same time electronic wheelchair. We have this tractor wheelchair which we attach to the wheelchair that is mechanical, and then you just have a battery in front and then you go. So it's more localized, motorized wheelchair. So we do that. Yeah.
Anything on for the mute, for them to speak, like for them to go to a restaurant or order something by themselves without anyone else?
Oh no, we are more on orthopedically handicapped. We manufactured assistive devices for orthopedically handicapped, and then also cane for the blind. But we have limitations on electronics or gadgets that are very technical.
Okay, thank you for that. And my final question for the speakers, can I get a copy of your presentations by email?
You can email me, PM me, Carmen Zubiaga, Facebook, and then you can send me your email.
Yes, you
Thank
can.
you.
If you cannot have it here in U.S. Embassy, then you can email me at joysafgar@yahoo.com. Joy Safgar, Joyc as in cat, E-V, Victor, joysafgar@yahoo.com. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. We have time for one last question.
Good afternoon to all of you. I'd like to direct my question to Miss Adeline, who's the power lifter in the team. Yes. Because like you, I'm a member of the Philippine team. So I'm with the Deaf Sports. And my event is bowling. So at the same time, I am also a teacher in a public school. Okay, so there are events, international events that I'd like to attend. However, I find difficulty finding support. So I'm not able to join those events. So how do you get support?
Well, we are in the same boat. We are in the same boat. No, yeah, we get.
Do you get support from government? Because I work in a government school. However, in terms of processing of papers, and it does take time processing those papers. I wait for 3 months before I could be allowed to go. And then sometimes I'm not able to join the events that I'm supposed to play in because of some problems also with paperwork.
Okay. As with regards to your employment, of course, I think you have to direct that with your superiors, right? And you know how you do the paperwork in the government. But as to the papers or the documents needed to join in a competition, you see, we have the PhilSPAD, the Philippine Sports Association for the Differently Abled, or the National Paralympic Committee. It is like the National Sports Association for the regular athletes. I don't know if you've heard of it, but I have volunteered before in that organization, and I know that they give support to PhilSPADA, right?
But they only give 25% only.
Who?
Support is
PhilSPADA.
25% support from PhilSPADA. I have experience going to Bulgaria
Okay.
as a member of the team, and so they gave me 25% support.
Okay, sir. Since I'm not part of the organization, what I can say is that maybe we can talk later in private. And well, I just would just like to share that we also get share from the Philippine Sports Commission, but of course, it all has to go through the board meeting, board approval, and all that stuff. So we are in the same boat as regards to support from the government, but we can talk later. Thank you.
Thank you. And to conclude the program, we'd like to share the SM video with you. Thank you, everyone. This concludes the main portion of our program, but I know there are still folks with questions. If you still have questions, I encourage you to post them on our Facebook page, and we will try our best to answer them. There was also a question from our American Corner in Bacolod about the initiatives for PWDs that your organization spearhead, so we'll try to answer that as well on Facebook. Now I'd like to invite you to mingle and for some refreshments in the back. We also have a booth featuring Waisili that Randolph shared with you earlier, the Young Southeast Asian Leaders Initiative. We have an Education USA booth and English language programs booth. So please enjoy. Thank you.
I can really